welcome back to Crime Besties to episode 21. It's a bit exciting.
What?
I know, it's crazy. It's exciting. I love it that each week, like, I feel like it's a milestone to reach the next episode.
Oh, totally. Especially weeks have been tough like this one.
Yeah, we've had a week. My son injured himself at the start of this week, stitches in his knee, and he's been feeling a bit sore and sorry for himself. But, you know, onwards and upwards. Today's a new day and he's at school and he'll be there the whole day.
Oh, he's hilarious. I love it. It's not the first and it won't be the last injury of Ollie's.
No way.
Yeah.
I love, he's so active at getting out there and that, these things happen when you're such an active child. But, the worst part for him is that he can't play sport for a few weeks.
It's killing him, yeah. I know on Monday morning we were driving to school and I wasn't sure if Ollie would be at school or not. And I said to my two boys, now if you see Ollie out in the yard, obviously he won't be running around. So go and sit with him for a few minutes, chat with him, keep him entertained or something. Don't just run off. Because I thought the poor kid will be absolutely devastated that he can't be in there with everyone else.
Yeah. His teacher told me so he went back to school on the Tuesday and she put a chair outside for him so that he could sort of sit down, and he's like, Mum, there were just like 4 girls and they were just talking at me all recess.
Talking at me.
I'm like, well, that was really nice that they hung around you and kept you company, because the rest of his mates had obviously gone off and kept playing sports. Yeah.
The girls have been lovely and sat with him. Oh, he could have brought home all the goss. I mean, geez.
I actually need to hit him up for the goss. I'm sure there would have been some.
Definitely. They would have been spilling
primo,
oranges.
Yeah.
Although knowing Ollie, he would have told you already if there was some good stuff.
That's true. He is good with stuff like that. He's great with info.
I told my boys after your youngest brought home goss the other day, which was I said to my you two, you're not living up to it. Come on, bring that home. You got to start listening a little bit more, because both of them, Brody, who was in the same class as Lucas, did not get that bit of information at all that Lucas brought home.
Well, I love that Lucas had deduced it for himself, and he was so proud of himself that he'd worked it out.
Yeah, Brody was like, but she didn't say that. And I said, no. She didn't say that. The actions equaled that, Brody.
I love it. Oh, it's great. Yeah, very exciting.
Love it.
The other thing I wanted to have a quick chat with you guys about is on Sunday, Peter and I went out for lunch with my brother and sister-in-law. We try and go out once a year. This is, instead of giving each other gifts throughout the year, we just go out for a really nice meal, and that's sort of our gift to one another. And we get that, my brother and sister-in-law get there, and my brother pulls out of his pocket a gift for me, and he hands it over, and I open it up, and it's a blowpoke.
Love this.
So for those of you who haven't yet listened to our staircase episodes,
the podcast to show us it. I'm going to have to see this thing.
Yeah. It's so funny. He got it from Temu for like $2.37. So it's the quality. It's the quality of a Temu $2.37.
Did you give it a bit of a whack on the head of his just to check if it could cause the injuries?
I actually didn't, but why I didn't, I don't know. It's odd. Anyway, for those of you
to the staircase,
the staircase episode. Yeah. And in it, apparently, I actually don't even remember saying this. But
remember. Yeah.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
He said that I said something along the lines of, if my brother ever gave me a blowpoke for Christmas, I would kill him. So
with the fucking blowpoke.
Yeah. So thanks for that, Matt. Early Christmas present received.
Oh, so good. Well done, Matt. I appreciate that. I think that's gold.
Yeah, it's great. It was a long play too, because nothing from Temu ever comes quickly, does it?
Probably bought it when the episode was released.
Yeah, he did. He reckons he bought it when he was listening to it, and it was like months, a couple of months have gone past.
Oh, that's great.
So episodes 7 and 8, for those of you who haven't listened to the staircase, go back and have a go.
Double episode, that one, because it's very, oh my God, that was huge. That nearly killed me, that one.
The
research of that was so
that
extensive.
That was a long slog.
Yeah.
We've got a few coming up. So this week we sat down and sort of did our episode schedule through to next year, into the early part of next year. And there are a couple coming up that are huge, that are going to be big research.
Have we done some? Yeah, right.
I think we've spaced them out well enough, though.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
Can always be changed.
We might.
We'll be right.
Yeah, we'll be all right. We'll be all right. So let's get into today's episode. This is sort of more recent living memory for most people, and I think most people will hear the name Gabby Petito and know exactly who we're talking about. However, when I was telling my husband about this, he didn't recognise her name, but when I told him the overview of the story, he was like, "Oh yeah, I remember her."
Yeah. You might have been taking notice of the name.
Yeah,
he couldn't have shown her face, and he wouldn't have known who.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's it. This is what happens when you don't remember faces.
Yeah.
But yeah, she. To me, that name is so recognisable. But then I guess we're obsessed with true crime. So
yeah, but it was everywhere at the time. Like, I mean, that's I think the whole thing of this case really is how much it got picked up in social media. I mean, a lot of armchair detectives took this case on and really helped solve where her body was and things like that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it was huge at the time, and I think it was one of the first. I think TikTok kind of really heavily got into, this case. So yeah.
We'll get into some really some more specifics, I'm guessing, as we go on.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I found interesting when I was looking at TikTok, I'm not a big TikTok person. I don't have a personal TikTok account. I just use our Two Crime Besties account. But I was looking into some of the TikToks around this, and people got down to such detail about how much hair regrowth she had,
so they could what's the sequence
and get timelines, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
People are obsessed with this case.
Yes.
You sent me a TikTok video of a girl, and we can actually link that TikTok in our show notes because she made something like 400 TikToks or more. It was actually more than 400 TikToks just about Gabby Petito.
Yeah. Yeah.
She does other crimes as well, looks into other crimes as well, but over 400 just on Gabby Petito.
It's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, it's mental. And she has some really great information.
Yes. And I mean, where people go and find this stuff, it's amazing how they get onto all these things. But
a few things I looked at, I was like, I just want to validate that
yeah.
elsewhere, and wasn't able to find things to back up what some people were saying. Like, some things that are out there are really far-fetched. And I guess that's what happens on social media. You can say whatever you want to say.
Absolutely. But that's where this case, there's so much body cam footage and stuff like that. I mean, that's real life. That's what happened. You can interpret things still, of what people's intentions were, or how they're try and understand how someone was thinking to say that.
Yeah.
But at least you can. It's very factual. A lot of that evidence that's been there, it's body cam footage, etc. of things. So
yeah,
I do like watching those.
Me too.
For that reason, you're getting real, genuine footage of what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's insane. There's a lot out there on this case, especially once you get into it. There's a lot of the different parts, the moving parts of this case. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
When I was sort of thinking about how we can talk about it today, but I've actually written a bit of a timeline.
Sure.
And then I thought we could go through the timeline piece by piece and then discuss the points as we go.
Cool.
Because I don't really want to miss anything.
No.
And I thought I knew this story, and I mean, I guess I did know the big points along the way.
Exactly.
But it's funny, the things that I've now found out about, which actually changed my my overall feeling of the case hasn't changed, but it definitely changed the way, my perception of law enforcement and that kind of thing in relation to this case.
Yep, definitely. I completely agree with you.
Cool.
Yep.
All right, so
perfect.
Gabrielle Venora Petito was born on the 19th of March in 1999. 1999.
Yeah.
I mean, she was nearly born in 2000 and she was an adult. What?
Oh,
sorry?
That's not right. Sorry.
No. She can drive a car? What?
Yeah. I know, someone was saying to me the other day, so the late 1900s. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, oh God, I was born in the late 1900s.
Mm-hmm.
That's not, we don't call it the late 1900s. It's just
born in the 80s, mate. It was born in the 80s.
Thank you.
Anyway, she was born in Blue Point, New York. She came from a really sort of lovely blended family. She has 6 younger siblings and half siblings. And so she was born to her mother, now named Nicole Schmidt, and Joseph Petito, or Joe Petito, was her father. They've since remarried. So Nicole is married to Jim and Joe is married to Tara Petito. Yep. And they are what you would want a blended family to be. They're close, they communicate, they're not all up in each other's business, but they are completely amicable, and all they care about are their kids.
The kids. And I mean, hats off to them entirely. They were only young, Nicole and Joe, when they had Gabby. They were 20, 21-ish. And so to be able to go from that and, split up, meet other people and have their own families sort of from that. But then Gabby feels like she legit has 4 parents. There's no steps in that family. I love that they're very much on the same page of that.
And that is so
good.
evident when you look at there are interviews with all of the family together, and even the stepdad and the stepmom, even their relationship's really nice. They're just friends.
They were the two of them were standing next to each other and I kind of
comforting each other.
Because one thing is I kind of go, well, they do have a type. Because Tara looks a little bit like Nicole,
Definitely.
and Joe looks a little bit like her, like the other husband. I can't remember his name. You just said it.
Jim.
Got Joe and Jim.
Joe and
there
Jim.
we go.
Yeah.
That's why I'm getting mixed up. I kind of was like, well, you've both got a type, but you can see the four of them literally probably hang out and go out for dinner potentially.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, and I think this, unfortunately, what happened has definitely brought them closer together.
This is it, yeah. Which, I mean, they've gone through so much with this, and thankfully they did have already a good base of a relationship. But I think you're right. I think this has really brought them even closer because, their link was Gabby, and I guess without her around, that link could separate more, but they've had to come together for so much, and I can see they will continue that through other foundations and things they've set up. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Gabby, in her younger life, she loved school. She was a really bright student, apparently. The school that she went to in high school, I think was almost a select entry type school. She was incredibly intelligent. She was a really talented artist, and that's evident by, you can actually see some of her drawings, and she does, her family now have all went and got tattoos, matching tattoos, or not matching, but tattoos that Gabby had sort of drawings of hers.
Yeah.
Yeah, really talented artistically. I certainly have none of that in me.
Oh, no. So appreciate someone else who has all that ability.
Yeah, absolutely. And she was an incredibly adventurous spirit. And I think that shows in the life choices that she made. And she just kind of, went with the flow. And, incredible young woman.
Absolutely.
I guess her undoing came when she met... So when she was at high school, she met Brian Christopher Laundrie. He was born on the 18th of November in 1997. So he was a couple of years, or year and a half or so older than her.
It was either a year ahead of her at school, though. Is that right?
He was 1 year ahead of her. So they met and knew each other at high school, but they hadn't kept in contact sort of after high school, I don't think.
I read mixed things. There was some of her friends were commenting that they knew each other at school, but it wasn't until after the school that they really started dating officially.
Yeah, they bumped into each other at a party, recognised one another, and started dating. And from what I've read, I think their relationship went from 0 to 100 in about 30 seconds.
There was certainly comments from friends and stuff that their relationship was quite volatile, that they
right from the get-go.
Yeah, didn't really know what they were going to get in terms of the two of them, whether they were totally loved up or whether they were fighting.
Okay.
There was definitely some comments from friends in some interviews around that.
But even early on?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was her really close friend, Rose.
Yeah.
Actually, she commented around a story that where the two of them, so she was single, Rose, but, Gabby was obviously partnered with Brian, but the two of them were going to go out to this line dancing night where it was ladies' night. So it wasn't about bringing along a partner. I think it was just the two of them wanted to go out and have a fun night. And they were getting ready. That Gabby was going to get a cab or something to meet up with Rose, and she got halfway there in this cab and realised her ID was missing. And it turned out that Brian had taken it off her. He didn't want her to go because he didn't like what she was wearing and all these sorts of things, and was
he was incredibly jealous.
Yeah, very.
So I think that actually happened after they'd moved down to Florida.
Right.
So from my impression is that early on in their relationship, everything looked to friends and family very early on that things were okay.
Right.
Although Gabby's mum reckons she thought Brian was okay, but she never really clicked with him. There was not that, oh yeah, he's a really good bloke and I'm really happy Gabby's with him. But also Gabby was an adult and she had to make her own choices, and we all, everyone makes, some not so great relationship choices early on in their lives, and that just happened to be she just thought, Gabby was kind of going through all that.
Yeah.
But Gabby was smitten right from the get-go. She was just head over heels in love with Brian, and supposedly he with her as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you said, things took a turn very, very quickly. So Gabby, they met in New York, and Brian's parents then moved from New York down to Florida. And Brian didn't have enough money to stay in New York and sustain he couldn't have afforded to rent a place of his own. So he had basically no choice but to move to Florida with his parents.
Yep.
And basically he said to Gabby, do you want to come with me? And she thought, well, why not?
Yeah.
So she moves down with the family down to Florida. They lived down there together in Northport, Florida for 12 months. And in that time, I guess they did odd jobs here and there. So they both worked at Publix, which is a grocery type store casually. And then Gabby got a job at a bar. Now, this was much better paying than the Publix job. Brian wasn't happy about that. He wanted it. He was already starting to really isolate her. I mean, number one, he's moved her away from all of her friends and family and support network down to Florida.
Yeah.
He then wanted to work with her and be with her all the time. And she's hoping to earn enough money to be able to move out of the Laundries family home, so that she and Brian could start their life together. He wasn't happy about her getting this job at a bar or whatever it was, but she basically said, well, I'm going to earn more money and that way we can move out quicker and start our lives together.
She was committed to him. That's all that needs to be done.
But the jealousy was already starting. And I think this is where you were saying so she met Rose down in Florida.
When you started, I'm like, I'm getting
a little bit ahead. Yeah, but
cool.
that's cool. We're there now. So she met Rose and they instantly, I think they met via social media. I'm pretty sure, or by a friend app or something.
Yeah, you'd be right.
And they really hit it off straight away and they were besties. They were doing everything together and what a beautiful friendship. And have you seen Rose interviewed?
Yeah.
She's a lovely girl.
So lovely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think her mum was commented around Rose saying, that she was so close with her that she felt like if there was an issue with her and Brian's relationship that she would probably have opened up to her before even her mum. And her mum and Gabby were very close. But yeah, her mum was her mum was very happy with this friendship that she developed. It was a good friendship for her.
But Rose's account of everything, though, is that she identified the fact that Brian was, very controlling and jealous, and she would sort of mention things to Gabby like, this is actually not okay. He can't treat you like that. He can't do that to you. The night that you were talking about where he took her ID out of her wallet so that she couldn't go to this line dancing thing.
Yeah.
That night, Gabby ended up going back to Rose's house and spending the night with her because she was so upset and felt so betrayed by what Brian did. And Rose thought that was kind of potentially the end of the relationship. Yeah. But the next day she went back there because he was so sorry and he brought her flowers and he love bombed her.
Well, there's statistics on it of how many, attempts it takes for, someone in a relationship like this to leave. And it's at least 5.
Okay.
So, it can take multiple attempts to leave.
And that's just on average. Gabby might have taken 20.
Some people might take 7, 10, 20. Yeah. Some people might be able to leave that first time, might be the second or third.
Yeah.
But for others, it's a lot more. It's typically around, 4 to 5 attempts before they leave.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It's tricky.
It's very, very tricky. Oh, it's just horrible.
Yeah.
Absolutely horrible.
So while they were living in Florida, though, obviously Gabby was living in the Laundries family home.
Yeah.
So at one stage she was living with his sister and brother-in-law. And then another stage there was his mum and his dad, I believe.
Yeah.
So there was kind of some time where his parents were overseas, I think, and that was when Cassie, his sister, and James, his brother-in-law, was living in the house, and then they moved into another property.
Yep.
And so there was crossover there. But, she was building relationships with his broader family through this, nephews and stuff like that as well. So that's just planting that seed for later.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So on the 2nd of July in 2020, now we've got to probably put a bit of a COVID mask on the timing of all of this. Literally. Yeah. They were engaged. So this was exactly a year to the day before they left on their van trip, which we will get into.
On that whole topic then as well, so they've got engaged, she's built this relationship then with his extended family. I don't normally go to this level of I feel like there's a there's a line of privacy with, like people that we research in these things. And I don't typically go to social media stuff. However, obviously with this case being a bit different with social media, I did search her social media and things like that. One thing I did find was that her Pinterest account is still open. And if you go in, there's a particular board called Life Goals. And when you click on it, it's a shared board. It's shared with 3 other people. So this Life Goals board is literally wedding planning, right? And holy shit, Jesus, she's got a vision. And I was like, and the board is stunning.
Love that for her.
Love that. Oh, I want to see that wedding. Oh, but not till Brian, obviously. But yeah, so it was shared with Brian, her mum, and Brian's mum.
Oh.
Yeah.
Brian's mum's name's Roberta. And his dad's Chris, just in case we refer to them by name upcoming.
Yeah.
But
yes. So, yeah, I just found that very interesting. So, clearly she's built relationships enough to have a shared board of, life goals for these two. That's
very, very telling.
Yeah.
Given it was during COVID, they sort of ended up postponing, I guess, any sort of wedding planning, not knowing what was coming up, how long lockdown would be, what restrictions would be coming up. And so on the 11th of December in 2020, Gabby purchased a van in the hopes of doing it up and living out of it and doing a cross-country trip across the United States.
Yeah.
It was a 2012 white Ford Transit van. They spent the next 6 or 7 months decking it out. So they popped a bed in the back. They put, different bits and pieces that you need to live out of a van. I don't know.
She had it very well set up.
It looked
everything
pretty.
had its place.
She had pegboards with things hanging up, and it was all it's a tiny little van. It's not like a camper van or anything like that.
It's like the smallest version of a camper van I think you can ever get. It's tiny, but
tiny.
Yeah, but she did an amazing job of having everything in there, but very hashtag van life kind of was very Instagrammable.
Well, so I think that was the intent, right?
Yeah,
she wanted to be an influencer, and she was already dabbling in that social media space, but thought, we've decided now. Postpone the wedding, go on this amazing cross-country trip. They didn't have huge plans in terms of timeline for anything. They wanted to visit all of the national parks. I think that was their goal when they set out. She had everything sort of set up and ready to go. And they literally departed exactly 12 months after they got engaged on the 2nd of July in 2021.
Yep.
So they actually ended up departing from Blue Point in New York. They were there celebrating Gabby's younger brother's graduation from high school. And so they just thought it was a last opportunity to sort of see Gabby's family before they departed on their journey. And they celebrated with her family and were off on this amazing adventure. Yep. Gabby's mum says, she was kind of a little bit even jealous of Gabby, she's got this whole amazing, exciting adventure ahead of her, as she should have when she's at 22.
Her mum had a 2-year-old, I think, So her daughter is living a life that she probably didn't get to do because she had a little child with her at that stage, and so she would have been so proud of her.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yep. So their plan, I guess, very loosely, was to basically make their way back down to Florida and start the hook through from there. So they've driven Florida to Kansas. They were looking to then go through Colorado and Utah.
Yep.
Okay, just real quick on Utah. Side note. Real Housewives of Salt Lake City.
Oh, I still need to get back on that.
It's the best. You need to give it a go.
Yeah.
But the one that you love so much, and this really ties into the social media side of things. If anyone hasn't watched Secret Lives of Mormon Wives,
hell, if you haven't, where have you been?
Get on it.
Yeah, you've been living under a rock.
It's amazing, and it's about the mum talk. Mom talk.
Mom talk. Can mom talk even survive this?
Anyway, sorry, tangent. I was writing down Utah and I'm like, well, we can't not mention it.
No, God, if you're in Utah, you have to mention it. Totally. Mormons, I mean, God. And soft swinging, I mean, God.
I never thought we'd bring soft swinging into this podcast.
Oh, I knew.
Anyway, within the next sort of month or so, they visited Monument Rock in Kansas. They've gone through Colorado Springs, the Great Sand Dunes in Colorado, Zion National Park in Utah, Bryce Canyon in Utah, Mystic Springs in Utah, They've been to a couple of national parks, Arches National Park and Canyonlands National Park.
Yep.
And this all sort of took place between the 4th of July and the 12th of August.
And they're posting regularly on social media, throughout that. So there's quite lengthy posts that Gabby put up around what they were doing and what they'd been up to. So
the other thing, actually, I'm wondering whether you know a bit more about this. I know they posted one YouTube video. So they started a YouTube channel and with the hope to, I think Gabby's intent was to eventually monetize her content. And so she was creating all of these videos, but I believe they only released one onto YouTube. Is that right?
She only managed to get one up. There was an 8-minute, I think, video. So they had a website and she'd posted that YouTube clip to that website.
Okay.
So she was at the time, this was when blogging and vlogging was a thing, we've now moved further into, I guess, more of other aspects of social media, of, releasing these sorts of things, and YouTube being, I think, a bigger thing. You almost don't need a website for this sort of stuff these days. Whereas at the time it was, have a website, you release your videos on your website. So, she was in the midst of creating all of that. Okay. And she was so artistic. I think she was really particular around how she wanted it all presented, which good on her. She was branding herself,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That video, though, have you watched it?
Yeah. It's amazing.
It's really well done and very well edited. And it's basically her perspective of what they were doing for the day and how they were setting up, and she was just going through what they did in a day.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, it's probably not the type of YouTube content I would watch. It's not really my cup of tea. But
van life is a huge
massive
movement, especially in America. I think there's stunning national parks in America, and to jump in an RV, as they call it, and go across the country is huge over there. There would definitely be a very good big community who would tap into that.
Absolutely,
stuff and
go, massive.
Hey,
niche.
this looks amazing. Let's go there and follow through with what journey they've taken.
Yeah. Hashtag van life.
Yes.
So
August 12th is
August
I guess
12th. This is a turning point.
Yeah.
So there was an altercation. They were in Moab City, Utah, and there was an altercation that was witnessed by several witnesses who then called that into 911.
And good on those people for calling this behaviour out.
Oh, I fully agree. I mean, when there is a movie that's been made of this, and I watched the movie. It's not really necessarily true to the timeline's a bit warped on it. It doesn't quite follow the timeline exactly, and there's a few things that happen in it that are fictionalized.
Right.
But when I was watching the movie, and it's called the Gabby Petito story, Peter came in, my husband came in, and he just saw this scene where basically Brian has hit, the depiction is Brian has hit Gabby and the witness calls 911. Now, the way that the movie has depicted it is that they are out the front of a grocery sort of shop and the witnesses see this altercation happening in the car park. They don't go and physically intervene though. They just ring 911. Now, I kind of get that as a woman. I wouldn't go over there. No. I would do the same. I would ring the police.
You don't really know what you're walking into.
Yep.
And
also, there is a bit of an element of that's, I don't know, between two people, but this woman is being hit. But Peter's take on it was, I don't understand how that bloke could just stand there and not go over there and do something.
Yeah. I think from the actual 911 call, to me, it seems as though he did maybe approach and they've immediately got in the car.
Yeah, I think that's actually what happened. I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying. That if you saw this stuff, wouldn't you try and physically intervene at the time? But I do think that's maybe where they were like, oh, do we approach? And when they did go to approach,
he's like, get in the car. And they've driven away.
Yeah, that's what I've sort of took from that call.
Yeah. So the report, the man who made the report, or the 911 call, the most prominent one, I believe there were two, but there's one that's very released. Readily available online. He does say that he gives them a description of the van and the license plate number. Florida number plate, exactly. So they know, the police
They find them very quickly.
Lookout. They're on the lookout for them. So they find them, they pull them over on a highway. And oh my God, the body cam footage of this, which was released many, many weeks later. But
Yeah.
oh my God, it is harrowing.
It really is. It triggers something shocking. It's really, really horrendous. And
Gabby is so distressed, like so extremely distressed.
You see such a different demeanour between the two of them in that video clip. So there's 2 different body cam footages, and funnily enough, they only released one of those body cam images originally. So months later after this it occurred still, but they released one lot of body cam footage which gave one depiction of what happened. And it wasn't until they released the second body cam footage that it's holy fuck. This was not done well.
No.
There's moments in that interaction that is just so appalling by those police officers.
It's disgusting.
I understand that it's really hard to take, 2 people's word on what they're saying, and then know what's happened. Absolutely. There's always 3 parts to every story. There's 3 sides to every story. However, if they had only been able to listen to that 911 call or call the 911 dispatcher and actually discuss and find out what was said, I think there would have been a very different take on what happened.
Okay, but this is what gets me, right? There's a lot of this out there where people are like, oh, if only they knew. They knew because the body cam footage, the one where they're talking to Gabby, the police officer says to her, he says to her, we've got a report that he hit you with a closed fist.
Yep.
And
so I feel like there's one cop who knows, but they haven't somehow communicated to the other cop who's maybe more senior. I can't work it out.
I think you're right. So the first body cam footage that was released was the police officer who was with Gabby.
Yep.
We didn't then see the body cam footage of the police officer police officers who were with Brian until much later on. So we didn't have that perspective to start with.
Yeah.
All we can see is Gabby's really distressed. She's in the back of the police car. So they've told them to get out of their van. They've pulled over on the side of the road. Get out of your van. They've separated them. They've taken Gabby. She's sitting in the back of a police car. Brian's standing at the back of their car having a chat with another group of police officers.
Don't even. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. The police officer says to Gabby, like, what's happened here? We've got a report that he hit you. We've got a witness stating he hit you. And she goes, oh, yeah, but I hit him first.
She's defending him. And
she's immediately. Now, another thing worth noting, a month before this incident, they had this interaction with Gabby and Brian, their entire police force undertook a DV professional development course, domestic violence professional development course.
Also, though, one of those cops who, when he separated from his ex-girlfriend, threatened to kill her.
Yep. But that was one of the ones with Brian, right? Yep.
Yep.
So the cop who was with Gabby, though, he's conflicted. You can see he doesn't know what to do.
Because it's really difficult because she's saying, but I hit him as well. Like, she's trying to take the blame. I
started it.
Because that's what she's been, like, conditioned to do by him.
This is what police...
They should be trained in that.
Well, I believe they had been.
Yeah.
But they just...
But the thing is, even just looking at the two of them, one of them even says it, and that's in its second lot of footage, but he even says it, look, she's 105 pounds soaking wet. Like, she's tiny. There's no way that she was going to injure him. She was not powerful enough over him. He was the more physically powerful of the two. Therefore, he is the threat. So even if she is hitting back... He's the one who's going to hit a lot harder.
Mm-hmm. Well, she had a mark on her face.
The mark on her face, the photo that she took of herself
sad.
even.
I know.
Which is only taken 10 minutes or something before they pull them over. So they had to have seen those marks on her face.
Oh, for sure. And, like, it's under her eye. Like, that bit looks like... The bit on her eye looks horrible, but then you can actually see, like, a big red mark on her cheek.
Yeah, and one further down where you can see where she then, in the video clip, shows that he's grabbed her here, which again...
But by here, for those who are listening, like he's grabbed her chin.
By chin kind of thing.
With one hand, like in pincer grip.
Which is classic of that's someone who then will go for a neck. If he's grabbing her here, it's not much further to go to the neck and then for the strangulation. It is an indicator of someone who is capable of it.
Yep.
And that should have been picked up immediately, that it doesn't need to be as physical as I think some people think it needs to be for it to escalate to that point.
The way.
Yeah. There were so many points.
So many points. At the end of all of it, and please go and have a look at the footage that's available.
Oh, yeah.
Google it. It's really it's everywhere. Like it's readily available. basically what the police decided to do was to separate them for the night because they actually had no choice but to act in some way based on the laws.
They still didn't follow the law.
They didn't, but they went.
What they
took
manipulated it a little bit
Yeah.
in that because Gabby wouldn't say that she, like, say they decided that she was the aggressor. Mm-hmm. That was their take on it. Which
Because actually, let's talk about that now.
Yeah.
Why did they think she was the aggressor?
Because she admitted to hitting him, but they never asked Brian, "Did you hit
her?"
Gabby?" They never asked him that.
No, because they were his best mates.
Best mates. It's so awful.
It's disgusting.
So you see them at the back of the van, particularly where it's, and I'm sorry, but I know they put Gabby in the car, the police car behind the van.
Yeah.
She would still be able to hear
And see
that going on. So as a victim, and she was in that moment, not that they were treating her, they were being somewhat nice, but they didn't ultimately treat her as the victim as she should have been.
Well, they actually, one of the quotes was, and this isn't a direct quote, but it's something along the lines of, it was just a slap fight between lovers.
Just two lovers quarrel. Fuck me. So she would have heard all that and seen that. So how's she feeling in the backseat there going, I'm being hit, I'm being this, but I make this happen, it's my fault. And then hearing them all jovially chat and laugh with him, she must have felt so alone and so unsupported to be able to come up and say, you know what, I don't feel safe.
Yep.
She could not have done that.
No.
And yet you've got his mates hanging around having a chat and
His new mate, and they're laughing and joking around.
gives me the
And
thing
they say to him, did she hit you? And he's like, well, yeah.
it's a boys' club.
Yeah, it's a total boys' club. So what they decide then is under the domestic violence laws in Utah, they need to separate for a night. Now, because they've only got one residence, and that is their van, they decide to put Brian,
because he's the victim,
as the victim, into state-funded domestic violence emergency care, which was like a motel type thing for the night. They left Gabby to sleep alone
in the camper.
Alone in the camper van in the fucking wilderness, like in the middle of nowhere in bumfuck Utah.
Yep.
Now, imagine if, I don't know, somebody else had have come across her that night. I don't know.
Yeah.
The liability 100% then is with those cops.
I just can't.
It's like, where's the judgment here? Like, where's the good judgment from them?
Yeah.
If nothing
they
else,
would have been. I wish if the worst case scenario of this was that they should have just bloody arrested Gabby. If they really thought she was the aggressor,
which is what they should have done by law.
Which is what they should have done.
Yep.
At least at that point, what would have come out was then it goes through the court system, and within a court system, it would have one, she would have had time to contact her family and get support she needed.
Yep.
Two, they would have listened to that 911 call a little bit closer and realised, oh shit, there is actually witnesses to this. They might have even interviewed those people and said, what did you see? And it would have come out what needed to if they just arrested her.
Yep.
I just can't. It really irks me.
The liability of the police will come into play a little bit later on. But anyway, it happened the way it happened. Brian spent the night in emergency accommodation paid for by the state, and Gabby spent the night in their trans van. She picked him up from the accommodation the next morning, and they went on their merry way. Now, so this happened on the 12th of August.
Yep.
On the 17th of August, Brian flies home to Florida.
Yep.
And leaves Gabby with the van
on her
own because she wanted to work on her
website
content and website or her YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Now, this bit gets me. When they left Florida, Brian and Gabby hired a storage facility to put all their belongings into.
Yeah.
Which, okay, if that's what you need to do, that's maybe your mum and dad didn't want all of your shit at their house. I don't know. He's gone back on the 17th of August. Now, mind you, they've left home on the 2nd of July. He's now back in Florida on the 17th of August to clean out, well, this is his excuse, to clean out the storage unit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to save the money because they were maybe thinking about extending the trip.
But yet he flew and spent money.
Yeah. What he probably saved, he probably, paid on flights.
Yeah.
Which, again, they paid out of Gabby's account?
Yes, it came out of Gabby's account. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I feel like that whole trip was, again, a control thing.
Yeah.
He's punishing her.
He was punishing her for sure. Even his sister said she thought, like, she knew that he came back for these 5 days. So he went back on the 23rd of August. And she was like, it was weird. Like, why didn't he bring Gabby?
Well, I mean, I'm sure we'll get into it, but that whole family relationship is fucked up. So
it's so fucked up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we will get. I think that comes a bit later in the timeline. We can chat about them. So he flew back into Salt Lake City on the 23rd of August. He apparently was he'd missed Gabby so much. He just had to get back to her. Okay, 27th of August is the next big.
Yeah, which is just
date.
5 days after he gets back.
Yep.
From this break, I guess, that, if you want to call it that, in that they've had a big blow up. Traveling with a person is, if you want to put a real glaze over this, traveling together is tough. They've had an argument, and which has involved police. They've had 5 days apart from each other to cool everything down. You'd think coming back from that, that as a relationship, you've missed each other. If things were all shiny and good, you'd be like in a good place, right?
Right.
Nah. So it just adds up to me. But yeah. Yep. So the 27th of August.
27th. This is the last known sighting of them together.
Yeah.
They were at the Merry Piglet restaurant, and there were witnesses saying that Brian was like screaming at the hostess. Gabby was in tears.
Oh, she was apologising for him.
Yeah. I mean, his behaviour just sounds absolutely disgusting. Like he was being horrible.
And it was all female workers. One person really made a point of stating that it was all females that he was yelling at.
Just being an absolute pig, showing everyone who he really is.
Yeah. He was refusing to pay or something, is that right?
Yeah, he thought they didn't get the service that he thought he deserved because, God's gift to the world and whatnot.
Yeah, narcissist.
And then Gabby and Brian, the witnesses saw Gabby and Brian sort of fighting because Gabby was so embarrassed by his behaviour, but he obviously thought it was absolutely fine, and so they had an altercation there. And as I said, this is the last known sighting of them together, and the police believe that these two witnesses, it was a couple who made contact, they actually saw what had transpired on social media and made contact with the police when they saw Gabby, because they're like, oh, she's the girl we saw at the Merry Piglet.
Yeah.
And their account, really went towards, and all of this is backed up by CCTV and everything. And by the waitresses in the restaurant as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, they think that couple's the last people that they know of to see Gabby alive.
Yeah. Oh.
On the 30th of August, there was a text message that came from Gabby's phone to Gabby's mum, Nicole. Gabby's mum states that it was a really strange text, and this was the start of her suspicion that something was not quite right. So the text said, "Can you help Stan? I just keep getting his voicemails and missed calls. Stan is Gabby's grandfather. Gabby never referred to him as Stan. It was always Grandpa."
Yep.
So that immediately arose Nicole's suspicion. She's like, well, and also Gabby would have called him. Like if he was calling her, she wouldn't have contacted Nicole to call him. She would have just called him.
Yeah.
They had that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
They were in contact. And so, so August 30th, Gabby's mum's thinking, oh, yeah, okay, that's strange. Didn't hear anything else from her or any responses back. We now know that on the 1st of September, Brian returns to Northport, Florida, to his parents' home in the van.
Which was a 40-hour drive.
Yep, it was 33-hour drive, 2,300 miles or 3,700 kilometres from where they were last known to be.
Mm-hmm. Crazy. Driving that. Yep.
So he's driven that distance in probably what was 4 days.
Yeah.
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 So, wow. I actually went super, super, super deep into the FBI files about this.
Yeah.
Now, they're all available on the FBI website. I'll link it in the show notes, but it's vault.fbi.gov. There are over 400 pages of of documents that relate to this case. And oh my God, it blew my mind how detailed they are.
Oh, right.
Oh, it was, I was like, oh, I have faith in all this because they checked literally everything.
Yeah.
They went to every single gas station that he went to. They
checked using a debit card, her debit card.
He was using her debit card.
Yeah, so they were able to know where he was travelling.
Yeah, so they looked at, they went to everyone. They got CCTV images, CCTV footage from every gas station. They confirmed Gabby was not in the van at this point. Gabby was...
She didn't appear in the
footage anywhere.
Some snacks or anything.
Even like a couple of the servos, which you can actually again see CCTV footage online.
Yeah.
You can see into the car. Like the CCTV is quite low, so you can actually see people's faces in their cars.
Right.
And yeah, she's not in the van. And there's it's not like she could have been sitting in the back.
No, because the back was
a bed.
Yeah.
There were 2 seats in this van. That's it.
Yeah.
So the FBI have really gone hell for leather in this once it's all been reported through to them.
Yeah.
So Brian arrives September 1st at his family's house. September 11th is the day that Gabby's family reports her missing. In the lead up to this, so from the last contact that they supposedly had from her, which probably wasn't her, on the 30th of August, all the way through to the 11th of September, they have tried everything they can to contact Gabby. Now, at first, they're saying to themselves, oh, they're travelling, they're in the wilderness, they're in national parks, there's no phone reception.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Gabby to go that long without contacting her family. She was kind of at least in contact with them daily if she could, if not every other day.
Well, if she wasn't contacting them, she was posting on social media.
Yeah.
And so there was some way of, if they weren't actually physically like speaking to her or receiving a direct text message, they at least could check her social media and see, oh, that's where they are today. You know, and all that went dead.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so they've reported her missing to Suffolk County PD.
Also in that time, they also were contacting Brian's parents to say, have you heard from the kids? Because there was a relationship there, obviously, Gabby having lived with them, of like, you know, have you guys heard from them? Because we haven't, like, very, as you would, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely.
And what did they do? Blocked their phone and blocked them on Facebook.
Yep. There was no way of Gabby's family contacting them.
They blocked them. They just didn't answer them.
Mm-hmm.
Not even pick up the phone and say, we don't know.
Yep.
They blocked them.
Because they knew. The police, so they reported this to Suffolk County PD in New York at 6:55 p.m. That night, the police knocked on the Laundrie's door in Florida. So the police acted on this very quickly to their absolute credit.
Absolutely.
And I love, like, you can hear and see a lot of the different, like, even there's a body cam footage of a police officer who attended the Laundrie's home, then speaking to a detective in New York who'd had contact with Gabby's family.
Yep.
And they're all over it. Like they're communicating so well.
And because the
nothing's falling through the cracks here.
They have slightly different ways, protocols, but they also have slightly different laws on things. And so they've got to manage it in terms of what the New York detective wants to have happen and what the Florida police officer can actually enact on. You know, it can be slightly different. So they're both trying to work through that. It's really interesting watching that body cam footage of like how on top of it they are of getting what they need.
Yeah, and nothing's slipping through the cracks. No. They're communicating every little tiny bit of information there.
They're highly respectful of the Laundries, I have to say. Like, they were not
aggressive.
No. They gave them every opportunity
to be reasonable
about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they weren't. So when the police knocked on the Laundrie's door, the dad, Chris, and mother, Roberta, appear. So there's like a little like sunroom type thing, and then there's their front door. And the police don't even go past the sunroom door.
They literally
to the
go
front
in to
door.
knock the door, and then he exits himself back out. So he gives the space. Like,
being incredibly respectful.
Yeah.
He then says, you know, is Brian home? And they say, any questions you have, you need to contact our lawyer. I can give you his number. So this was 11 p.m., I think, Florida time.
10, 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, so it was late.
Yeah.
And the police officer's like, well, I'm not going to call your lawyer at 11 o'clock at night. I'm just asking you if Brian's here.
Yeah.
And they say
answers real quick here. If Gabby and Brian have
here,
come
then
home,
we're all good.
We can just tell the parents that's where she is, you know?
So and he's like, yep, Brian's here. And they say, well, is Gabby here? And he's like, no.
Contact our lawyer. We're not talking to you. We will not speak.
We have nothing further to say. They are fucking feral humans.
This only made me even hate them more. Like if I could. They were so in that instance of like enact your Fifth Amendment right, understand that you don't want to speak to law enforcement, but answer the question, do you know where Gabby is?
I am sorry, but invoking the Fifth Amendment when your daughter-in-law is missing.
Who you say you love.
Yeah, I mean, you said it before. Like, Gabby wanted to share her wedding plans with her mother-in-law. Like,
exactly. They
had a relationship.
And then to go and do that, I just can't. And it's an enabling freaking narcissist son. And this is exactly how this has been able to develop to this point, is his mother.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I'm going to get angry.
Get angry because this is not okay.
That enabling piece of shit
Yep.
has allowed her son to become the full-blown narcissist that he did. Because without that, he would have been pulled into line earlier to not behave this way. But the fact is that his family enabled this shit is exactly why it got to this.
Yep.
They are to blame.
They are to blame. They are, and I mean, obviously Brian is 100% to blame, but they, at the core of it.
Yeah. You back your son. Absolutely. You support him and everything. Yes.
But you support your son to do the right thing.
But you do the right thing.
Like, yes, you would support them. I would never abandon my child. No. However, the expectation is that they would do the right thing, and I would support them in doing that. Yes, I'd get them, the legal means, but that they required. I would do anything I could to help them, but I would they knew what he'd done at this point.
100%.
Oh, we know they knew.
Well, we do and we don't. As in, like in the deposition, they still won't admit that they knew she was dead. They knew she was gone.
Missing. Oh, gone. Yeah,
was the
gone.
word that he used.
Yep.
Now, I'm sorry. Any parent in that phone call that they talk about, and we can probably maybe jump ahead, I don't know. But in the deposition because there's a lawsuit that the Petito and Schmidt family enacted upon the Laundries in respect to, what was it called? The lawsuit was, I had it highlighted. They sued them for, where's my piece of paper?
So they sued them originally for wrongful death, but then
they sued them for intentional infliction of emotional distress.
That's it, yep.
Including their lawyer, which I fully agree with.
Yep.
So basically, this is them suing them for the fact that they knew that Gabby was dead, if at very least, and didn't inform the police and allow Brian to speak to, or not, that Brian didn't step forward and speak to the police. But they knew that this was at the point of, we're looking for a body, not a person, walking around, and they should have followed through and let police know that.
Yeah.
So in the deposition, they asked them multiple times what happened, and there was his dad Christopher says there was a phone call, a frantic phone call, on the 29th of August from Brian saying that Gabby is gone. Now, any reasonable parent would say, I'm sorry, mate, calm down.
Gone where?
What do you mean by gone?
Gone where?
What do you mean gone? And that answer needs to be, she's gone for a walk. She's gone to X place.
She's gone home.
Or she's gone as in she's dead. Now, if you are not anything other than an enabling fucking moron, you know how to interpret that if you're not going to answer, if you don't ask the question, you know the answer. What do you mean by gone?
I could not agree with you more. They didn't ask the question because they didn't want to know what the answer was.
And that,
or did they ask the question and they're just perjuring themselves when they're in their deposition?
Either is fucked up. Like
they knew. Like, you can't convince me they didn't.
No. Absolutely.
They are criminally liable, in my opinion.
Have you read the burn after reading letter?
Yes.
Do you want us to read it?
Yeah, I think we should. Do you want to maybe go back and, like, in terms of the timeline, get to that point? Because I think there's a little bit more context that we can give to that before we get to that point.
Yeah, cool.
Is that all right?
Cool. Yep.
So September 16th, there's a press conference held where Gabby's dad fronts the media and he begs for Gabby's return, but mostly it's about getting Brian to speak up. So he's begging Brian. He's like, I know you're at home. I know you know. We just need to find Gabby. Please, whatever you do, if nothing else, if you loved Gabby at all, you would tell us.
Even if he just said, we separated last at X campsite.
Yep. That's the last place I saw her. Whatever. September 16th and 17th as well, Laundrie's sister speaks to, Good Morning America. They interview her on her front lawn with her husband.
Oh, well, it wasn't Good Morning Australia that interviewed her. It was actually protesters who went out to her house. They'd been out the front of the Laundrie's house multiple mornings and evenings, yelling at them to tell them where Gabby was.
Is this that blonde woman with the megaphone? Yeah, she's cool.
She's amazing. So it's her and this other guy who actually, when they go to protest out the front of her house after her comments on Good Morning Australia, I think were
Good Morning America.
Misunderstood. When I say Australia?
Yeah.
Sorry. So I think that her comments, and I agree with her, she was, it was misquoted in an article, I think it was.
Yeah.
And so I think after that article was released, they went and protested at her house, believing that, she's the same as them, and her and her husband came out to say, guys, we've got our kids inside who are crying because they've heard you yelling out, that they're
awful stuff.
Their auntie, basically.
Yeah.
And we haven't had that conversation with them.
Because at this point, they don't know anything.
So that is actually protesters that they were talking to. So
right. And then that was aired online?
A lot of it was. So it's a 20-minute. You can go onto YouTube. It's a 20-minute.
You can watch the whole thing.
They give all credit to both of them. They gave them plenty of time and they were saying things, as they said, we're probably saying too much. We shouldn't be. We've been told not to talk, but we're sick of this and we need to say something because, hey, reasonable people know that things should be said.
And they were kept in the dark. I mean, their story is that they didn't know anything and they were learning things as the rest of the public were learning things.
I actually believe her.
I fully believe her.
Yep.
You look at her face, you can see she's really distressed.
Yeah.
She loved Gabby. She even says that she loved Gabby like a sister.
I get the vibe that maybe Brian was the golden child.
Oh, obviously.
And she was not. So.
No, exactly.
If you want to go down that path and look into what narcissists and how narcissists develop narcissistic
another
children,
narcissist,
and what golden childs and everything, that's a whole other podcast we can go into another day.
Yeah, absolutely. But it has followed that pattern in this family.
Yeah.
Cassie, one of her quotes from that interview was, "Obviously, me and my family want Gabby to be found safe. She's like a sister and my children love her. All I want is for her to come home safe and sound and for this to be a misunderstanding." I felt for her in that because you think you'd be so desperate that, even if your brother is an asshole, you would never want to believe that he's a murderer.
Oh, no.
So she's trying to unpack all of this while the rest of the world's unpacking it. And, poor her.
Yeah.
Poor her.
But, she talks in that I don't know if I want to call it interview or not, but she talks at that point about the camping trip that they went on. So Brian arrived back on the 1st of September to his family home, and was it the 5th of September?
Yeah, the 5th, yep.
5th to the 6th, they've gone on a camping trip. Mm-hmm. And this sister, she went as well, but completely oblivious, to be honest, by the sounds of things. And she regrets now that she didn't pick up on any vibes of anything. Again, the enabling parents have probably just swept it all under the rug. We're just on our camping trip. They only stayed for for 6 hours, I think she said, because they've got young kids who have to go to school the next day. They've rocked up to have a bit of a, muck around at the campsite and have some dinner with them all, because they haven't seen Brian much since he's come back from his big van life trip. So she's a bit, I think, oblivious at this point. And
I think she believed that Gabby was just back, working on social media
But again,
stuff.
it's very telling how she didn't know, she didn't feel she could ask questions.
No.
So I feel like she didn't ask the right questions.
So she's been groomed as well.
Exactly. She knows that this family is not one that you question what Brian, Christopher and Roberta have going on. You are better off staying out of that.
Yeah. Just to wind back just a tiny little bit, the police actually set up surveillance cameras and were surveilling the Laundries' home during this time. They put surveillance cameras all around their house, not on their property, but on neighbours' properties.
Because they were
neighbours.
all like, yep, get them.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, sure, go, put stuff up. So there was footage of Roberta, I think Brian was hiding out in a shed, a big shed.
I don't believe that. We don't know.
Well, no, they think he was in there for a bit.
At one stage, the people thought he was living in a bloody garden bed too, though.
Oh, what? I didn't hear that.
I know that. Yeah. I remember that at the time. There's footage of them, which, oh God, this is all going on, and they go out gardening. I couldn't. Anyway, so
I guess they were stuck at home though.
Roberta and Christopher are out gardening, and there's footage of where people believe they see a hand pop out of like a garden bed, and they think that Brian's living under the garden bed.
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah, check
oh
that
that's
out.
so
Great.
funny.
Yeah.
But look, whether or not he was living in the shed,
TikTok.
Roberta was, oh, that's so funny. Roberta was back and forth to this shed, so they think maybe Brian was in there, I guess. But even though the police were surveilling them, Brian managed to get out.
Yeah.
The police thought that it was Roberta leaving the house, and so obviously she wasn't somebody they were necessarily interested in following.
Yeah.
So thinking it was Roberta, they have not followed. And on the 17th of September, the Laundries actually, they reported Brian missing.
So going back slightly, what date was it that supposedly he left on that camping trip that he went on?
I think it was the
14th?
14th or 15th.
14th, because on the 15th of September, Christopher and Roberta go to that camp entry.
Yep.
Collect the Mustang car that Brian drove to there and brought it home.
Yep.
So they knew where he went, and they knew to collect the car from there, as if like to say, we know he's not walking back out of that camping trip and coming home in that car. Just leave that with you.
But then, like, how could they be complicit in this, in what was to come next?
Oh...
I'm like, did they go and get the car because they wanted their car back?
No, they knew what he was going to do.
But how, as a parent, could you allow? Like, no.
They're not fucking human.
They're not
Pieces
human.
Of shit.
Yeah. At this point, Brian was named a person of interest. So on the 15th of September, he was actually named a person of interest, but never a suspect.
No.
And because he was only named a person of interest, the police couldn't actually compel him to talk to them. And so basically at this point, any contact the police had is through this lawyer who, a week before anyone knew Gabby was even missing, was paid a $25,000 retainer by the Laundrie family. That's also
on that 29th of August phone call, that frantic phone call where he told his dad that Gabby was gone. That was when he hung up from that phone call, the father, and rang the lawyer. I'm helping you, mate, because there was he rang his dad 20 times in those 2 days, I believe.
Yes.
After that, so yeah, on that trip back, he was on the phone constantly to his dad. Can't tell me they didn't know anything.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The Laundries, we have since found out, were also quite rich.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I've seen it written in multiple different places, and the amount's the same everywhere I've looked into it.
Okay, so I've only found it in one spot, a reputable spot.
Yep.
And that was when I think I said it to you going,
Yep.
Have you seen this somewhere? Because I can't verify it anywhere else.
Two other places
Okay,
that they were worth $7 million. Now, their home, very modest, nice, neat looking.
Florida house prices.
Well, I looked into it.
Yeah, okay, good.
And a house like that is somewhere in the $250,000 to $400,000 range.
That makes me sick of what we pay here in Australia.
I know, right? I mean, it's a single-story weatherboard type home. Like, there's nothing, or stucco home. There's nothing special about it. It's on a decent-sized block, I guess, but it's not what you would think a $7 million.
But is that $7 million in assets? Like, they own other properties?
I don't know.
You know what I mean? Like, there's cash rich and then there's asset rich, which can be, who knows? Oh,
yeah.
Well, I hope the settlement was good.
we don't know, do we?
We don't,
so 17th of September, Laundrie's family have reported him missing. On the 18th...
Which, again, they knew he was missing 2 days prior when they went and picked up his car.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest.
Yeah. That bit I can't get my head around. No. Like, I there is nothing logical in my brain that goes, oh, yeah, that's why that happened. September 18th, we're now searching for 2 people. We're searching for Gabby still because she still hasn't been found and no information has been forthcoming from anyone. And they're also now looking for Brian. The next day, on the 19th of September in 2021, remains that are consistent with a very small female were found, and the following day, I think, no, 2 days later, were confirmed to be Gabby's. It's so tragic, but I find the way that this all came about really interesting. There was another van life YouTube family who were traveling in the same area as Gabby and Brian. And when all this sort of was coming out on social media, they were like, oh, we were in that area around the same time. I wonder if we've got any footage, because they'd take footage of themselves driving through the wilderness
themselves.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so the mum goes back and she's like looking through all their footage, and what does she find? She finds their van parked, not even parked. It looks like it's just been like, I don't know, dumped on the side of this sort of track. It's not even a road.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh my God, that's the van. That's the van.
You can see the Florida plates.
You can see the Florida number plates. She lets the police know, and they find Gabby's body within 300 metres of that van, of the van.
In that footage.
Of where the van was, sorry.
You can actually see that Brian was in the car at the time. So
can you?
Yeah, didn't you see that? Okay,
No.
So again, YouTube, other TikTok sleuths got onto it. One of the guys was able to enhance the footage that much. You can see the back door of that van close.
Yeah.
And you can see there's actually his shoes just outside the van. You can see all that happen as she pulls up. It's really hard to see, but when he enhances it, it's really obvious. So he was in the van at the time, which, I mean, that family, they feel like, not that they would know to even, because they're also from Florida. She was like, we saw the Florida plates. We're like, oh, we could talk to them. Like, we're all from Florida. But then as they drove past, they were like, oh, no, there's no one there. Oh, well,
they've gone on a
keep
hike
driving.
or whatever.
Like, maybe we'll see them at the campsite, which is along that road. We'll keep an eye out for them. And, and that's obviously exactly when.
Yep. So, I mean, thanks to social media, this, they were able to find Gabby's body quicker than they probably would have otherwise.
Yeah.
So, they've discovered Gabby's body, Gabby's remains. The autopsy confirmed that Gabby had been strangled. I can't even. Mm-mm. The medical examiner... or the coroner basically stated that her estimated time of death was between 3 and 4 weeks prior to when she was found, which really fits the timeline of it matches up to when that family had driven through and located their van, and then Brian's subsequent movements, kind of everything tied up with that.
Yeah, roughly that 27th of August date. And I'm hoping that you found something, because I certainly couldn't, because I have many questions about that autopsy report. Mainly how her body was, whether it was buried or just on the ground.
I think it was on the ground. I think there was some...
I don't think it's been released. The autopsy report, that you can't get full access to the full report from what I've been able to find.
No, you can't.
In the FBI... I think it's actually illegal for them to release it in that county where so whereas Brian's one has been released entirely because Florida laws allow it. So from what I can gather, that report can't be seen
in the FBI documents. They refer to it, but a lot, even the references are redacted.
Because I had questions around how her body so that's 300 meters from where that van is where her body was found, because then was her body put there? Was it moved there? Was that where it occurred? Was there the blunt force trauma to the head? Is that a head bump on the forehead, where in a later situation it's mentioned by Brian that he talks about a bump on the head? Or because I know when they talk about throttling and that sort of thing, and they talked about that potentially was hit around the sides of her face, from what I could read of what was released, but no mention of particularly the forehead being hit. So I just had many questions.
Yeah, I mean,
as
you said, there's no answers out there necessarily. There's some, I don't even know where this information came from, but there's some information about the position of her body. Like, she was like on her side, almost curled up, like her, I mean, that what they found was skeletal remains. It's not like they found a body.
Yeah.
But it looks as though maybe she didn't die straight away. She's kind of like gone into the fetal position on the side. I haven't been able to substantiate that, though, whether that's true or not.
Yeah, because that probably doesn't align with the strangulation.
No.
So, yeah.
No.
Okay.
But then that's what people are saying, like if she was in that position, had he not quite killed her, or was it the blunt force trauma that ended up killing her? Don't know.
The autopsy report very clearly states the strangulation.
Yeah.
So, because, okay, right. Yep, when we get to that bit.
And I guess when these documents aren't released, people are speculating, and it's very easy to speculate on TikTok.
Oh, yeah. That's why I like to read it in autopsy reports.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so now we found Gabby, thankfully, and Gabby's family are very grateful for that fact. And, you know, we still now don't know what's happened to Brian or where he is or what's going on. On the 23rd of September, an arrest warrant is issued for Brian in Wyoming through the US District Court. But all that they could get him on was intent to defraud, because they were able to prove that he'd used her credit card or her debit card and her PIN when he was buying. Well, they actually got him only on one charge of it, because there's only one CCTV where they can see him inputting the PIN into the pad, and it was for like a $33 fuel charge.
Got to get him on something though,
but they had to get him on something.
That was another question I had with the autopsy report that I wanted to find, was whether or not there was DNA found like under her fingernails and things like that. You know, that transfer, not just a hair on her body, because that's easily transferable. I wanted to see evidence that would 100% link that. Not because I question whether or not it was him that did it.
She had no flesh
left,
but to make
sure that to make sure that they were able to get it, like that there was a definitive. It was him. He was there.
Nail in the coffin, so to speak.
But that there was just like they could still get something under fingernails potentially. I don't know.
A reward was offered for Laundrie's arrest on the 25th of September, and on the 26th of September, Gabby's family held a memorial service for her. In New York, in Holbrook, New York. This was beautiful. There were so the local fire station decided to send 2 fire trucks and almost make a guard of honour for Gabby.
So her stepdad was a fireman.
Yeah. So, lots of, huge amounts of respect there. They had pictures and lovely things that Gabby had done, adorning the fire trucks. And so many people came out to pay their respects. And obviously, because this had been such a media and social media hype sort of thing, there were people who didn't know Gabby still, making the effort to attend, and her family really appreciated that. They understood that, it was because of people sleuthing and looking around that Gabby was found as quickly, as she was. I can't imagine what it would be like to be in their position, to be burying a child of yours who, and thinking about her last moments and what that would have been. Yep. Her mum says that she likes to focus on the positives or the nice parts of this. And one of those things is, she said, at least Gabby had seen some really beautiful things in her last few weeks. And she said, that's what I hold on to. I don't want to think about the awful experiences that she had. I look at the amazing things that she was able to do.
Yeah.
Oh, the strength of that woman.
Yep.
The strength of the whole family, but she's amazing.
I think the fact they've got each other is what gets them through, thankfully. Yeah. Yep. Such a supportive network there. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian's family is still not really cooperative with police, even though their son's missing. September the 27th, they speak to the police very briefly and just basically say, oh, well, we don't know where he is. On the 7th of October, so a few weeks later, I guess they decide to help out.
No, not the 7th. The 7th of October, the water recedes enough that they can get to various different parts of the park.
Okay.
Right? So from the 7th of September...
October?
They're still quiet.
Okay, but Brian's dad helps out that day.
Did he?
Yeah.
I don't think it was... No, the first time they joined their search was the day his body was found.
Oh, right. Which was... What, the 20th of October?
On the 20th. And literally within an hour, 45 minutes, I think even, of them helping to search, they find his remains.
They first find belongings.
Yeah, first of all belongings.
And then they see right
the
next to it, they find the
skeletal
remains.
Yeah. So,
and it's pretty obvious that he has died of a gunshot wound to his head.
Yep. Now, this screams to me that they have negotiated with police complete immunity. We'll show you where his body is. If you promise us, we're not going to get any charges for it. To me, that's the only, I don't know, how on earth do you think that they've been searching that place for like a month?
Yep. Yeah.
And no sight of him whatsoever, cannot find him. The water recedes on October 7th to where he was found was then exposed, which was only about, I believe it was only a 10-minute walk in.
Yeah, it was.
From the entry of the park, it was only about a 10-minute walk into where he was found.
Yep.
So it wasn't like he'd gone depths of this. It was a huge 25,000 acre, like national
wetlands or something. Yeah.
So he was only 10 minutes in. So his dad was able to walk in there, and within 45 minutes they found stuff. And it's the only day they go out there and look. They had negotiated immunity.
I can't. The thing I just cannot get my head around is that they knew he was going to kill himself.
Yeah.
And did nothing.
I think that they knew. This is where it screams that they knew what he did. That Brian had told them what he had done. They knew that he was going to spend his life in jail if everything played out to where he was then taken in custody by police. So I reckon as a family they've discussed this.
As in, I think you're probably best off killing yourself.
Kill yourself, or you go to jail for life, and he's then gone and chosen kill himself.
I actually feel sick thinking about that.
I think that's repulsive.
That is. Oh my God! If that's the case, that is so fucked up. Mm-hmm. No.
I can't. I don't understand it any other way, and I don't even understand that, but I can't get any other story that makes sense.
That is. What parent? Okay. Let's just say we go down the path of, yep, we're going to go to the police. We're going to tell them what happened.
Yep.
You might get 25 years. You don't know what you're going to be sentenced to. Wouldn't you rather chance it?
Chance it. Well, as they say, you never plead guilty to murder because why not see what you can
see
get.
What comes out in the wash.
Yeah. See what you can put forward and get a jury to believe.
Oh my God. I actually can't.
Yeah.
I actually just can't.
No.
It's disgusting.
Well, maybe this is the point where we read that letter.
Yep. I think that's a really good move.
Because this is the parent that does that. Now, look, reading this letter.
This is from Roberta.
This is from Roberta. So she gave him a letter, and now she claims that this letter was written prior to them leaving on their trip across America. But this was found, I don't know where they found it actually, because someone says that the FBI had it prior to him being found. I've seen elsewhere that it was found with the body.
I think the most things I've seen is that they found it in his dry bag.
Yeah, I believe it was found in the dry bag, but somewhere else I was reading.
Which was with his body.
Yeah, somewhere else I read was that the FBI had it already, but I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not sure. They originally released snippets of it, but this is the full letter that she gave to Brian, supposedly, which is, it's not dated or anything like that, so we can't categorically say when it was written.
Yep.
But she says she gave it to Brian as they left for their trip across the country, and that apparently they had an in-joke about a book that they both enjoyed called Burn After Writing. And so that apparently writing on the envelope of this letter, burn after reading, is purely in relation to that and nothing else. But that's her take. This letter reads, I just want you to remember I will always love you. I know you will always love me. You are my boy. Nothing can make me stop loving you. Nothing will or could ever divide us, no matter what we do or where we go or what we say. We will always love each other. If you're in jail, I will bake a cake with a file in it. If you need to dispose of a body, I will show up with a shovel and garbage bags. If you fly to the moon, I will be watching the skies for your re-entry. If you say you hate my guts, I'll get new guts. Remember that love is a verb, not a noun. It's not a thing, it's not words, it is actions. Watch people's actions to know if they love you, not their words. Therefore, I am certain that neither death nor life, nor angels, nor the ruling spirits, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers from above, nor powers from below, nothing in the entire create world can separate our love. Neither hostile powers, nor messages of heaven, nor monarchs of earth. Nothing has the power to separate us. Romans 8:38, extended version. Nothing can separate us, not hatred, not hunger, not homelessness, not threats, not even sin, not the thinkable or unthinkable can get between us, not time, not miles and miles and miles. I don't even know where to start with that.
I don't think we can because we will literally be here for another hour.
Yep.
That says a lot.
Yeah. It says what kind of mum I think she is.
Yep.
As we both said, we would stand by our child.
Of course.
But to do the right thing.
Yes.
Not, I'll get you out of jail and I'll bring the garbage back.
And I'll bake a shiv into a cake so you can, like, you know, fuck shit up in jail. She is diabolical. Like, she's pathological.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just too much. It's just too much. On the 22nd, in November 2022, a Florida judge awarded Gabby's family a wrongful death suit against Brian Laundrie's estate to the tune of $3 million. But he didn't have assets totaling anywhere near that. No. I don't think they've actually seen any of that money, but it was validating for them to
absolutely
have
it's
that.
Really just a figuratively
they won't
mention value, like kind of thing. They won't see that money.
And nor do they necessarily want to. That wasn't the idea behind it. They wanted everyone to know that Brian was culpable and he'd killed Gabby.
Absolutely.
In 2024, the Petito family and the Schmidt family sued Brian's parents, claiming they knew that their son had killed Gabby and had intentionally withheld that information. Mm-hmm. That you can read what did you say? 700 pages of
it did go pretty deep.
It goes deep, but it just goes to show how fucked up the Laundrie family are.
Oh man,
they're so evasive. It's horrible.
Yeah. So that deposition was in October in 2023.
Yeah.
That was then they decided from that yes, this should go to trial with a jury, which was slated for May 2024.
Yep.
But in February this year, they actually settled.
Yep.
Which is undisclosed. We don't know what the amount or anything was or what the settlement deal was really. It was all kept under wraps. But I believe that they've come to a agreement that the Laundrie family knew enough that they did behave despicably.
Yep.
Apparently there was language like that used. There was certain that they was definitely they were culpable enough that there was enough to settle that it should fall that way.
It went in.
They basically
the Petito and Schmidt way.
I think if they went to the jury, like would have been a landslide. To be honest, I think there was plenty of evidence there to show that these people are fucking motherfuckers.
Absolutely. So
the other aspect of this then was what was found with Brian, which was one particular bit of evidence was a confession letter. Have you read it?
Yes.
Yeah. It is the most narcissistic, awful piece of shit I have ever read in my life. Mm-hmm. And look, we could be here for another day if we picked it entirely apart.
Yep.
But there's just a few things I wanted to note from that disgusting letter.
Yep.
You can go online and you can see, look, the letter itself was obviously in a notepad. It got wet. So reading it from its original state is quite hard to do, but you can find it transcribed in multiple places, but we can also link that in our show notes. That letter was released by the lawyer, the family lawyer, on a Friday, which happens to be the day that any publicist releases things that they don't want a story on. It's like Berry Day. You release things on a Friday. Not only that, it was the same day as the Roe v. Wade overturn.
Yeah.
So it
was so strategic.
It was so strategic. And he was saying he released it to be transparent, but that's the most untransparent
way to do
it.
I'll just read a couple of little bits out of that letter that really got to me. So he's basically inferring in this letter that Gabby injured herself and he had to kill her. It was like a mercy killing.
Mercy killing.
So he says, when I pulled Gabby out of the water, she couldn't tell me what hurt. She had a small bump on her forehead and eventually got larger. Her feet hurt, her wrist hurt, but she was freezing, shaking violently. While carrying her, she continually made sounds of pain. Laying next to her, she said little between violent shakes, gasping in pain, begging for an end to her pain. She would fall asleep and I would shake her awake, fearing she shouldn't close her eyes if she had a concussion. She would wake in pain, start her whole painful cycle again, and then there's like an illegible bit. Furious that I was the one making her. Then a little bit later down, he says, I don't know the extent of Gabby's injuries, only that she was in extreme pain. I ended her life. I thought it was merciful, that it is what she wanted, but I see now all the mistakes I made. I panicked. I was in shock. But from the moment I decided, took away her pain, I knew I couldn't go on without her. I have killed myself by this creek in the hopes that animals may tear me apart, that it may make some of her family happy. Please pick up all of my things. Gabby hated people who litter. And that is literally the end of the note.
Yep. So, first of all, that letter jumps around in past and present tense all over the shop. Not only that, the first paragraph it actually is addressed to Gabby.
Yep.
But within that first paragraph that's supposedly speaking to Gabby, he says the word I 8 times.
Oh, funny that. Narcissist. Saying I 8 times in one paragraph. What?
Yeah. Now, I have many issues with his story of how it took place. First and foremost, her body was found 300 metres from the car.
The car. Mm-hmm. Or from where the car was. Yep.
If he's saying this is how this played out, right, but he couldn't carry her any further.
She weighed, what was it, 105 pounds, which is like 50-something
he
kilos.
Was a fit. They kept going on about how good a hiker he was and how great he was at all this stuff, at wilderness stuff, being a survival man. What, he didn't have any first aid equipment on him, no lighting because it was dark, he said as well. They had no headlamp thing or anything like that. They had no light. He had no, I'm sorry, but she was a vlogger. She would have had her phone with her at very least, use that as a torch.
But they wouldn't have been out there without a torch.
This is it. They wouldn't have been.
No.
So there's fault in that, I can see, but also if they would have had a cell phone, there was full cell service in that area, call 911. Call for help. He never called out, never did any of that. The way he described it in that letter is if he is in they have been out in the wilderness for days dealing with this, that she's got this, if anything, she's tripped in a creek and hit her head or something, right? And she's begging for him to end her life. That's what someone does who's fallen from a cliff and broken every bone in their body. That's not the reaction of someone who's tripped and fallen and bumped their head. None of it actually makes any sense. He apparently built a fire with what? What, he had a flint on him at the time? Like, why did he have a flint and not a freaking torch? Like, I just don't. None of it makes sense.
No, none of it makes sense. Like, he's constructing or trying to build a narrative around what happened. It's not true.
Oh,
he fucking killed her because he was jealous or pissed off or rageful about something. Like, don't even, mate. It's just so freaking insulting that he's gone down that path. It makes me so mad.
Yeah.
It makes me so angry. How fucking dare he put that onto Gabby?
Exactly.
In her
fault.
Yeah,
she
like
wanted me to do it.
But that speaks to his it's never the narcissist's fault.
No.
It's always someone else.
Yeah.
Someone else is always to blame. And then he's done the right thing by killing himself so her family will be okay because he's so good. So her family will get a bit of justice.
He's gross.
He is fucked up. And you know what? Good fucking riddance.
Oh, nothing better than him being dead.
Yep.
Other than maybe being beaten the shit out of in jail every other day.
Yep.
Honest to God, I just can't. The fact that he said in there, I ended her life and didn't know what her injuries were. Who does that? Who ends someone's life but not know what the injuries are?
And as you said, it's not like she'd fallen off a cliff and it was very clear that even then, you don't kill someone. You do everything you can.
Carry her to the car. Get her to a fucking hospital.
Even if you can't pick her up and carry her, okay? Worst case scenario. No. Get in and say your phone's got no battery. Okay, cool. Yep. Get in the car, go and get help and bring help back to her.
Yeah, nobody made out that was her fault too. She kept telling him not to cross the river. Don't go. Well, if she's talking to you and saying enough to say, don't go, stay with me, she's not ready to die.
Dude.
Fuck off. No, that letter is the biggest piece of fucking shit. And the thing that then ultimately gets me is it takes a minimum 62 seconds to strangle someone up to like a minute and a half.
I've even read up to 3 minutes.
It can be 3 or 4 minutes for some people, depending on how big their neck is and all those sorts of things, the pressure it takes. But for how small she was, let's work off of the fastest possible timing.
Sure.
You're looking at a good minute of holding her and watching her go through that. Oh. You fucking piece of shit. And you couldn't stop yourself. So he's an evil piece of shit.
I've got tears in my eyes. I can't. I just actually can't.
Who can do that? That you are not human. That's not merciful. There's nothing merciful about that. Nah.
I think we leave it on that note because like we could literally discuss this and
totally. And get angry.
Yeah. Really? This could escalate real quick. I mean, it's escalated, but
I think we're all hormonal too. It doesn't help.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. Just really quickly, thank you again to everybody for listening to another episode of Two Crime Besties. We love doing this every week. It is the highlight of my week. I absolutely love it. Always look forward to Fridays.
Why is it the crime calms me some way?
Yeah, it does. It does.
It's not my life.
We have a Buy Me a Coffee. So
yes.
It's buymeacoffee.com/Two Crime Besties. If you want to donate a coffee or a wine to us, we would be very appreciative. But by no means is that necessary. We would really appreciate mostly if people can like, follow, comment on our content. That really helps get us out to more and more people.
And we just love the conversation about it too.
Exactly. Yeah. I love that we now have a lot of regular listeners who we don't know. Like it's funny because we're
starting some back and forth conversation with certain people that are really enjoying it. So it's really lovely. I love it.
And, you know, we bullied all of our friends and family into listening and now we've got actual people who we don't know listening to us.
Genuinely wanting it.
Yeah, so thanks guys. That's awesome. We love it.
Yes.
Next week we are going to be talking about the Maria Korp case. So she's the body in the boot.
Yep.
This is a really fascinating one. Again, we're sort of zooming back to Australia, based in Victoria, near us again. So stay tuned for that one next week, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone. Stay curious, crime besties.